Hey, what's up? I'm former Bills receiver Stevie Johnson, and you listening to Nate and the fellas on the Circling the Wagons podcast. It's only one way to roll, and that's through the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills, baby.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo! Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo!
The Bills make me wanna shout!
Welcome to the Circling the Wagons podcast, a podcast discussing the Bills all year round with interviews, news, recaps, and insightful fan discussion. Most times. Here's your host and lifelong Bills fan, Nate.
Hey Bills Mafia, welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo Rumblings podcast. I am your host, Nate. Thank you guys so much for listening to us after that tremendous turd of a preseason game that we just witnessed between the Buffalo Bills and the Steelers in Pittsburgh, where the Bills got absolutely shellacked. They got jackhammered by the Steelers 27-15, and it was not even that close at all. It was not, they had a throwaway touchdown at the end. We're going to go into all of that. We are going to not only break down that game, though, we're going to discuss, does it really matter? It's still a preseason game. And I'm going to be honest, as one of those people that I live and die by what the team does. I tell myself that it's only a preseason game, but I'm still a fan at heart, and it's still disappointing to see that performance. It's pretty awful to watch. But we're going to get into all those things. We're going to talk about, the biggest takeaways from the game, injuries, Tommy Doyle out for the year with an ACL. We're going to talk about Sweet Sassy Molassie plays of the game, Wall of Famers, Wall of Shamers, and tons of other topics. But first, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spire Sportsbook at Delago. I was just actually at a family reunion over in Clyde, and was driving past Delago, and I was just like, man, I want to stop there so badly. I mean, first off, I wanted to stop there so badly because the other destination was a family reunion, and those are always awful and terrible. But just in general, it's just got those things. It's just such a cool place, man. It is such a cool place. It always seems like it's so busy that I wanted to go. But of course, I had my kids with me, so I couldn't go, and we were supposed to go to this family reunion. I don't know about you guys, but every family reunion seems like the same thing. It's like literally you're going to a place where you have extended family members that you don't know. And it's not like they're super oh, hey, I'm Jeanette. Nice to meet you, Nate. It's like you just hang out with the family members that you know through and through. That's all you hang out with. So it's just I might as well be doing this at a place where my mother-in-law's house instead. And then I see the same people I'm talking to right here instead of all these other awkward people that I don't know. And it's not even their fault. They're doing the same thing I'm doing. So
they're probably not coming home and bitching about it on a podcast.
If they have a podcast right now, I guarantee they're like, there's this guy, Nate. Okay. He's total loser. No, it's funny. I randomly, one of my wife's distant relatives, you're probably talking third or fourth cousins. He was one of my professors at UB, oddly enough. And I found that out through talking to him. And I was like, oh, because he mentioned he's from Buffalo. Yeah, I live in Amherst. I teach at UB. Oh, cool. I went to UB, what'd you teach there? And that. It's oh, you taught this. And I'm like, oh, I had you in class. It was funny. He didn't like me. He did not like me in class. I do remember that. He specifically did not like me, but he didn't remember that part, and that's all that matters. It was funny. He asked me my name, and I'm just like, dude, you've been teaching for 25 years. You've had thousands of students upon thousands. You don't remember me. Trust me. I did my best to try to keep as low profile as I could, so I wasn't asked a question in class. And
how big was the class?
That was my go-to. So, he taught a couple of classes. The one class my senior year, there was only 20 of us, which he did. So yeah, he remembered.
Was it that project where you had to come up with an engineering thing?
Yes. Are
you still going to do something with that?
No, he already patented it. He reminded me of that today. He's like, yeah, we patent all the designs for everyone's senior projects.
So
it's in an archive.
What a scam he's got going on.
Dude, he was talking about all these cruises he's been on lately, like all over, Europe and stuff like that. Those river cruises where they go on to 5 different countries in 12 days, right? He's like, oh, they're amazing. He's doing that with my design money, like my handicap accessible design device that I made. He's just.
But I haven't seen your design on store
traveling the world. Oh, he's just selling the IP.
But no one has made it. That's my point. Or maybe a competitor bought it and then killed it just so that they could keep their market.
Like when ESPN was going to make that NFL football game, and then Madden just bought them out so they would never have a competitor, like something like that. Except, you know what? He's probably getting his money off of every other student's design. Probably wasn't my design.
If we're being honest, yours was basically.
Mine was a great design, but go ahead.
It was basically something you inserted around the elderly human to help elevate them out of the chair, make it easier for them to stand up.
Yeah. It was like having chair rails. Like you just slide it underneath, and then, you just push up off of it to get out of the off the couch or whatever. Yeah. But if your couch didn't have an open bottom, then you're screwed because it couldn't slide under. Just couldn't use this device. We didn't have enough time to come up with another one. So yeah, it was
you
very.
had a semester.
I mean, I was taking other classes and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty sad.
Well, what a good scam. Like you just make it as a requisite part of the class, right? He just said, oh, give me your best ideas that you've been saving up for the 25 years of your life to pass this class. You need to design it, submit it. I'm going to patent it. You don't worry about any of that.
I'm going to patent it.
And your final grade will be based on it. Wow.
Mike and John.
What? Do we switch over to ASMR? Josh Allen. Dalton. Super Bowl. Josh. Stop. Too good.
So what he would do is he'd probably take the best design ideas and then just make them better. Like there was a guy who came in who's
that place that late night infomercial. Oh, you got an idea? It's like the caveman hammering out the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Got an idea? We'll patent it for you. Yeah.
It was that commercial and call Quest. John's giving us the knowing nod.
That guy also runs reverse mortgages too. Buying gold bars. Sell your jewelry for cash. Sell your gold for cash. So we're going to talk about the Bills. I'm glad you guys are cool with that.
You should confront him, man.
Family reunions. I couldn't. That was my chance. It's funny because he's like, "Oh, what was your design?" And I was like, "Oh, it was this and this." He's just like, "Oh, yeah." He's like probably the best actor on earth. "Oh, yeah, I don't really remember that." Meanwhile, he's just like, tell him to build 10,000 more, sell them overseas, so as not to get copyright. Oh, well, we have the patent, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, Buffalo Bills preseason game, second preseason game. Guys, let's talk about the biggest takeaways. The first thing I'm going to start off with, which is something we started off with last week, was the quarterback 2 competition. Everyone of us were pretty high on Matt Barkley, and it's safe to say
whoa. Is that true, John? I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I mean, we talked about it.
John and I are not.
Yeah, it might be a competition.
We need a bigger sample size.
Exactly.
Wait. What? This is last week. You guys were like, he had a good game. He had a good game. And I was saying he had a good game. We'll see.
Yeah, he had a good game, but
we weren't ready to.
He wasn't. Yeah, he had a good game, but he wasn't automatically
right.
Okay, he's better for sure.
Yeah, I never said that for either, but this was like another step in that direction. If he had another good game, you're like, okay, there's almost no reason why they can't make him the best.
Yeah, if he had another good game. But if he throws 3 interceptions and loses the fumble, we won't.
I don't remember that stipulation. I don't remember you guys saying that. But I believe you. So Matt Barkley basically turned into Nathan Peterman this last Saturday night. He had 3 interceptions, like Mike just mentioned, 1 fumble. He had 3 interceptions in 4 passes, and then technically 3 interceptions in 5 plays because one of those plays was a run play. So there's one pass that wasn't an interception, one run, and then 3 interceptions back to back to back. So I think it's safe to say that he is not going to win that job as of now. He needed to cement himself in that role with a good game, and he did not have that game.
Or just
not that Kyle Allen had a great game, but
just be like fake an injury.
Oh, he has an injury supposedly now.
Yeah,
He's an elbow
supposedly.
injury.
But he should have done that after last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Leave us wanting more.
So there's not much to that story besides that. Barkley had an awful game. But I think one of the biggest storylines beside this was that the Bills looked awful with their first string offense and first string defense. This is how the game started for those of you that didn't see it, or even those that, want to remember this and feel pretty awful inside, was that the Bills' first string defense with Kenny Pickett, who I never thought was a really good quarterback. I've seen him play in college. I remember I was at this Syracuse game, and it was Pitt versus Syracuse, and they destroyed Syracuse. But like, Kenny Pickett didn't do anything with his arm. He just ran around, and he had really good running backs. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't see anything at that game, and I didn't follow his career, but I wasn't like, this guy's that good. And then last season, the Bills beat the Steelers 38-3 in the regular season. So I'm like, okay, well, he's not the guy, right? He looked very good yesterday. The Bills were okay on the first possession on defense while the Steelers had the ball. Kenny Pickett was kind of moving the ball around, and then all of a sudden there was a 62-yard run by the Steelers' backup running back, and he gets a touchdown. You're like, okay, like, that's not ideal. I guess every once in a while something gets away from you, right? The Bills go 3 and out on offense. Not ideal at all. They look terrible on that first drive. Okay, whatever. It's a first drive. The Steelers get the ball back, have a huge run back. There was like a 57-yard run back and the punt return. Unbelievable. And then Kenny Pickett throws a dart to, it was a touchdown to, I believe it was Freiermuth, their tight end, for like a 35-yard touchdown or something like that. So literally 2 offensive plays in a row that the Steelers run were 2 touchdowns. All right. So the Bills at this point in the game, they're down 14-0. They've been dominated offensively, defensively, and special teams wise. And not so much dominated. The Bills just looked terrible. They looked awful. And then it continued for most of the rest of the game, besides like a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But they were throwaway touchdowns. The Bills against even the Steelers' second teamers didn't look good. There's a lot to worry about as a Bills fan. So here's what I want. Okay. Do you guys have anything to add to what I just said before I ask a much bigger question, John, or anything?
Not really. I mean, like, just in general from the first quarter, spot on. I do think Allen and the receivers in general looked good. There were plays called back from penalties, and that's a whole nother thing we'll get into probably. But yeah, everything you said. Otherwise, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the penalties yet. I mean, those were maddening. But here's where I'm at right now with you guys. So I think as a fan, I go back and forth with this all the time. The preseason truly does not matter. We know that for sure. But I mean, if I have to choice of how my players are going to play or look, and I know it's a vanilla offense, I know it's a vanilla defensive scheme, whatever, they just look bad. Like, they look like they weren't a team that's played together. They look like the team that was not 13-3 last season. I'm having serious doubts about this season, and I don't think I should based on this last preseason game. It's only preseason. I know I have to tell myself that. But where do you guys come out on that? Like, do you look at that and you're just like, the Bills have serious problems offensively? I think, like you said, John, I think Josh Allen looked pretty good. He got a lot of pressure on him, and his tackles, which we will talk about at some point, didn't do him any favors. Spencer Brown didn't look good, continues to not look good, but Deion Dawkins didn't look good either. And I know the Steelers have a good defensive line, but they did not look good at all. They weren't really able to run the ball. There was a ton of penalties, like you mentioned. And like, there's cause for concern, but am I overthinking that, or should I just look at this? It's just a preseason game. Who cares?
Well, on the offensive side, our 2 biggest concerns coming out of last season were lack of offensive weapons and the offensive line. I think Kincaid proved that, and even Hardy and Sherfield had a great, 21-yard gain in the second quarter. Like, I'm not so concerned about the offensive weapons, but obviously the offensive line that you were just talking about does have some concerns. And now Tommy Doyle's out for the season. Brandon Shell retired last week. There's still some concern there. I think Torrance has been playing okay, Osiris Torrance, but like overall, it hasn't been looking good. On defense, starting defense did not look good either. I know Bernard was out at middle linebacker. Nobody else stepped up there.
Even Milano didn't look great. I'm not saying it's his fault, but he didn't look great. That play got past him. That 62-yard run went right past him. Both Milano and Dodson got eaten up by blockers in that run, and you're just like, well,
they took terrible angles. There was also some missed tackles. The pass coverage wasn't the best. Like, it wasn't good.
They didn't look good on Elam and Benford. I mean, not like Dane Jackson looked great, but Elam and Benford against the twos, against Pittsburgh's twos, didn't look good. Like, they had penalties. They were missing. They weren't great on coverage. They were allowing their guys to get passes. Like, they didn't allow them to break open huge plays for a big gain, but they didn't look good. That's cause for concern. Tyrell Dodson. See, people like to rag on Tyrell Dodson. I don't think this is his fault. He's never shown he was starting level caliber middle linebacker, and the Bills just punted on the position. Like, when we went into the draft for free agency, we said the biggest needs, especially after Tremaine Edmonds got signed, was middle linebacker. That's why we had Jack Campbell mocked to the Bills. Like, we kept doing that because we're like, the Bills are either going to do this or they're going to punt on the position. And then there was that other guy, I can't remember, out of Arkansas all of a sudden, Drew something. And Drew Sanders, thank you. And then the Bills didn't take him in the second round, and he was available in the third round. They didn't go up to take him. So they were just going to punt on the position no matter what, it sounds like. And that's what you get. Like, you didn't bring in a veteran to compete with Dodson. You were expecting Terrell Bernard to do it, and Terrell Bernard's injured, unfortunately. But then you brought in A.J. Klein. Like, those are two known commodities. Like, what are the odds that they're just going to all of a sudden put it all together and be this amazing starter? Like, they've never proven it otherwise. So as much as people rag on Dodson, like, this isn't his fault. Like, it's the Bills front office fault. But again, everything, even the middle linebacker thing and the woes, at that level, the Bills just don't look good protecting Josh Allen. And that's something they could have, at least they got like the interior with McGovern, Morse, and now Osiris Torrance, which you said, John, looks good. But tackles still don't look good. Spencer Brown has never, ever proven to be a capable starter at right tackle. Now, he's had a few flashes. You could use the injuries as an excuse last offseason, but I mean, how many more? I mean, he's just never proven to be a really good starter in the NFL. So now we're just hoping. We're just hoping at this point. And then Deion Dawkins, like, he took a step back last season. He was not as good last season as he had been previous years. Even the COVID year, when he got COVID and he was in the hospital and he thought like it might be serious. I don't think he thought he was going to die, but he was very worried in the hospital. He came back. He had a slow start at the beginning of the season, but he still looked better that season than last season. And he didn't look good. So speaking of which, like, the Bills have made a concerted effort to try to build up the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line. If you want a blueprint of how to do that, look at the Steelers. They have an amazing defensive line. They have an amazing offensive line. They owned both sides of the ball for the Buffalo Bills with those lines. So I guess on a scale of 1 to 10 of how worried you are about this season, I'm going to put it at a 5. I'm going to say I'm at a 5. I'm kind of concerned. I'm not full out panic. I'm not like this season's over. I'll never feel that way as long as Josh Allen is healthy and starting. But I'm a little worried, and especially because he's not going to play the rest of the preseason, which I'm okay with. But he's not going to get any better from not playing.
I still think they'll go undefeated.
But John's at a 0 for being worried. Mike, where are you out of 10? John, are you really a 0? Or are you just saying that? You're not worried at all? It doesn't bother you?
Well, it's a 1. You said
1 through 10.
You said
sorry.
1 to 10, so it'd
1.
be a 1.
So really a 1? Okay. Mike, what about you? Going to be between John and I?
What is your level?
I'm at a 5. 5 out of 10. I'm a little worried. I'm not panic mode. I'm not getting to panic mode, but not excited. 2. Okay. Well, I think a lot of fans are feeling what you're feeling because I put a poll out on Twitter.
X?
On X, sorry. My bad. Why would you rename a brand that was fine by itself? You know what pisses me off? Side note. the one social media platform where I've spent hours on trying to get a follower. I've given away prizes, stuff like that. Like the most followers we have on any social media platform by far is the one that's just being driven into the ground. Like it's just, what a terrible gamble on my part. Like I'm going to put all my thoughts and effort into this one. And then it's just one that's just going to go away soon.
All for nothing.
All for nothing. I'm already on Blue Sky. If you guys are on Blue Sky, follow me there. I'm on Threads, even though I don't think Threads is that good. I think it's even worse than Twitter right now. But
I'm sure X will be just fine.
Yeah, I'm not getting rid of it. Don't get me wrong, but it's
because you think the product is that good, or you're a Musk apologist, or
why am I going to stick with it? Or John?
Like I think it's hard to like kill something that's been successful, right? Like, okay, you rebrand it, whatever. Like, it's still, people are still going to use it.
Didn't Vine get killed?
I don't know what happened with Vine.
Yeah, it was huge. It was like the original TikTok,
greatest.
where it would just be like 10-second videos.
But how did it?
Twitter bought it.
How did it get killed?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Elon Musk specifically bought Vine and just tried to rename it V instead of Vine, or some other letter that doesn't even begin with Vine, like Q. Yeah, exactly.
MySpace,
that social media platform. Yeah, they've failed before, like huge ones. MySpace was huge. Just got replaced by another one, so it has happened.
Yeah, I have a MySpace, thinking about moving to Facebook soon.
Yeah. That's why you don't need to do family reunions anymore, by the way, is because Facebook exists. So I wrote a poll on Twitter. I said, are you worried about the Bills 2023 season after just 2 preseason games? So I had yes. The options were yes, no, and I never stopped worrying, because I think there's a lot of Bills fans. We had a whole episode, not a whole episode, but we talked about it in one episode recently where we said, is there still a hangover from the 2022 season and how that postseason ended with that loss against the Bengals? Like, is there reason to worry? And 60% of Bills fans were like, yes, like I'm still not over that loss, which is crazy because we were into August. We were well into training camp when I posted that poll. But I think this is still relevant. So are you worried about the Bills 2023 season after just 2 preseason games? The winner was no. 53% of the fans said no. Which I think it falls along what John and Mike were saying with their answers. 26% said yes, I am worried about the Bills 2023 season, and 21% said I never stopped worrying. So almost half the fan base is kind of worried in one way, shape, or form, and the slight majority says they're not worried. I wish I was as confident as you all that aren't like that. Andrew Insing writes, I think concerned about consistent weaknesses in their game, such as pass rush and stopping the run, is fair, but we have an elite QB that should be able to overcome some of those weaknesses. Yeah, but I mean, so like John mentioned earlier, one reason we should be excited is because of Sherfield, Hardy, and especially Dalton Kincaid. And Gabe Davis is playing at a whole new level. So I agree with all those things, but the pass rush and the pass blocking is very concerning to me, like Andrew mentioned. And one of those things that I think about is that, do you guys remember when the Bills were on fire in the 2021 postseason? It was the 13-second loss season. Like, their offense looked really good. I mean, they destroyed the Patriots in the wild card round. And then the next round, the divisional round, they lost that game, but they really should have won. If it wasn't for some coaching gaffes, like, their offense was good enough to beat that team. And I try to think about, why was that team different than the team now? Like, what was different about it last season than 2 seasons ago when they were really good? Well, Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator, and now he's not. So that's one thing. But then the other thing is that Josh Allen had probably the best blocking in front of him that he had ever had, because they moved Ryan Bates to left guard. They moved Darrell Williams to right guard. So, like, they looked pretty good in the offensive line. And Josh Allen, for once, had time. They could run the ball up the middle. Like, there was... I think that moment is why that Josh Allen looked so good from the end of the season till the postseason, is he had time to throw the football. And the fact that he might not have that this season, again, is what worries me. So Brian Football writes, never stopped worrying because they showed attention to the symptoms and not the problem. We're running it back again with the same stale scheme, acting like it'll be okay. McDermott is calling plays. Short yardage, yet cornerbacks were 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. Again, that's a very good point, Brian. I saw that for sure. That is something that was the way it was in that game. Guys playing way off again. There was a play, I was just rewatching it again before we got on, and Dane Jackson was against George Pickens. Now, George Pickens is a really good wide receiver, right? He's probably a better wide receiver than Dane Jackson as a cornerback. I don't think there's any question about that. But as soon as the ball was about to be snapped, Dane Jackson was right up at the line of scrimmage, and as soon as the ball was snapped, right about there, he just backpedaled 10 yards before the ball was even snapped. And then George Pickens got the ball. It was like a 3rd and 7 or something. Caught the ball with a 6-yard gain, and then he just ran the extra 5 yards. Like, easy first down. I was hoping without Leslie Frazier, we wouldn't see stuff like that. We'd see a little bit more pressure or something like that. We didn't. And the Bills didn't create nearly enough pass rush on the defensive line, like Andrew said. So, so the majority of Bills fans, not so worried, but some folks like me, let's just say I have an eyebrow raised. I'm not worried, but I'm like, this could be a thing. This could be a thing. So let's go into our Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game, brought to you by the Twin Spire Sportsbook at Delago. Haven't done that in a while. Usually it's at the beginning. I like saying that. I miss saying that after every segment. So, John, what do you have as your Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game?
I'm going to go with the at the end of the Bills' last drive, the Kyle Allen to Justin Shorter 17-yard touchdown pass. There weren't too many great plays to pick from, but I think that was a great cap off to a really good drive overall. The only good drive overall.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that one, John, because that was a good pass. It was a good catch. Justin Shorter, we mentioned. I don't think we gave him the Wall of Shame or even an honorable mention for Wall of Shame last week. We were just hoping with all the receivers getting involved and all those undrafted guys getting involved in the passing game, we were just kind of hoping Justin Shorter would get at least a target. Well, he had more than enough this week. I think that they tried to focus on him this week, but yeah, I like that one a lot. I'm going to go with, so get this, Josh Allen. His pass to Gabriel Davis for 35 yards. It was 2nd and 24, I should say. Sorry. 2nd and 24 at their own 48-yard line. Josh Allen passed it deep to Gabriel Davis, and it was off to the left sidelines, the close sidelines if you're watching on TV. It was 2nd and 24. It was a 35-yard catch. Gabe Davis it was an amazing catch. It was like toe drag swag, whatever. Count Dragula. The sideline surgeon, whatever you want to call Gabe Davis from his big game Gabe Davis, right? It was a textbook catch like he did his first 2 seasons with Buffalo. It looked great. He got it. It got the first down, and then it was called back by Spencer Brown, offensive holding. So then they got another 10 yards added on to it. So it was the catch that wasn't. But still, if it wasn't for that holding call by Spencer Brown, then it would have been an amazing catch that gets, how often do you ever, a 2nd and 24 becomes a first down play? Right? That's just so rare.
It was a really bad game when you're picking a play that didn't count.
Yeah. That's sad, right? You picked the one that where they went up so that they were losing by less than 2 scores. That was the play. It was against the Steelers' third stringers, and our backup quarterback was passing the ball. Yeah. All right. So let's go into. So we did Sweet Sassy Molassy plays the game. Let's go into Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame. Let's start off with Wall of Fame. Mike, who did you put on your Wall of Fame for that game, for the whatever you want to call that game?
For me, it starts and ends with Dalton Kincaid. I don't know who else you could have. I'm so excited to see him play in the regular season. Just amazing hands, passes that would have bounced off players' hands in the past. I just think he's going to open up the passing attack big time when we see him in the regular season. I hope not to see him again until week 1.
Yeah, so same here. And he played even with Matt Barkley, I believe, into the first quarter after Josh Allen got taken out. So the offensive line did. I know Kincaid stayed in there. Knox did not play, so we didn't see that. But we were so used to seeing I think, Mike, that's kind of what you're alluding to a little bit, is that, Dalton Kincaid has great hands. He looks good. Like, we're not used to seeing that necessarily out of all of our draft picks, like, that are pass catchers. Like, we've seen issues with drops from Dawson Knox and Gabriel Davis and Isaiah McKenzie. Zay Jones, remember that whole season that, like, where we ended up trading him, right? So it's good to see. It's good to see a guy come out and just perform.
We've always
right away.
wanted a
like,
Travis Kelce.
Always.
Or a Gronk. Like,
So,
Gronk
yeah.
was always destroying us. And we're like, why can't we get someone like that? We can.
So when I know now we can. So when we had Anthony Prohaskon from Cover One, and we were mentioning, like, what does the 12 personnel, which is like a 2 tight end personnel, give you? He's like, you have no further to look than what Gronkowski and Hernandez did to all the NFL for, like, 7 or 8 seasons until that thing happened with Hernandez. But, like, that's how good they were. Like, you never knew. Each one of them could catch the ball. Each one of them could block. Each one, you never knew if they were going to come out running the ball or passing the ball, or you just never knew. So that's what Dalton Kincaid affords them. So yeah, baby Gronk, Kelce, whatever you want to call him, I'm here for it. So John, who is on your wall of fame in this one?
Kincaid is a good pick. He looks like he's going to be the real deal. But for me, I'm going to go with Kyle Allen. 12 of 15, 112 yards, touchdown, the only good drive of the game. Yeah, that's
a good one. He had a Matt Barkley stat line this Saturday. 12 for 15, no interceptions. Yeah. It was almost like Case Keenum last year, right? We were all ragging on Case Keenum. Is Matt Barkley going to be? And then,
yeah, this is exactly what happened.
Literally, exactly. And not only that, like, Kyle Allen was playing with the third stringers, and he still did all right. So, yeah, I'm going to put – I like those a lot, honestly. Like, I mean, I love the Dalton Kincaid one. I could definitely see a case for those. I'm just going to give – I probably would have gone Dalton Kincaid, but I'm going to give Gabe Davis a mention because, I mean, do you guys think that if the Bills' offense is as good or better than this season, I think Gabe Davis, and obviously Dalton Kincaid, but Gabe Davis having his best year of his career will be a big part of that. And if the Bills go to the Super Bowl, it's because Gabe Davis takes his play to another level. I mean, I think that's one of the major factors to this season's success is how much more can we get out of Gabriel Davis? How much better can he be that he hasn't been before? Can he be that, number 2 wide receiver that we really haven't had, consistently? Since Peerless Price, Eric Moulds, maybe? So.
Well, he's in a contract year, so he's even more motivated.
Yeah, good for him, man. I'm all here for it, man. Get that money. I don't care if it's with us or with it. Do ball out, right? Like, yeah, exactly. He's not coming back. So, but it's good to have him. Like, we gotta realize it's like that Office episode where he's like, man, I wish we could remember the good days while they're happening. That's like Gabe Davis's last year, right? Like, this is how I feel about it. But then again, I'm also worried about the season. So here we go. What about Wall of Shame? There's so many. Like, we could have just started and ended the podcast with Wall of Shame, which the way that this disaster of a game went, man. I was trying to think of a good analogy for the way that this preseason game went, and the only thing I could think of is, like, have you ever, like, been having a bad day and, like, you're just walking through the kitchen and, like, the little handle on, like, one of the cupboards, like, catches on your pocket, on your pants or your cargo shorts or something. You're like, oh, and then, like, you drop something you're holding and you're just like, oh, like, it's just like there's a level of how many bad things happen before, like, you either swear or get audibly angry. And the older I get, the less it takes. It doesn't, like, when I was a kid, like 4 or 5 bad things would happen and be like, oh, this is so frustrating. Now it's like 1.5, 2. Then I'm just like, this day is ruined, right? Like, that's how that game felt to me. Have you guys ever been that? Like, you've been doing something or you're trying to make dinner and you're in a hurry and then something gets caught on a cabinet and it pulls you down or whatever. Ever happened to you?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a good analogy, or do you guys have a better analogy of how that game was? Because that was
no. I mean, yeah, it's like it's like one thing after another, and then, like, you get to a certain point, and it's like screw this.
you want to, like, throw the dishes on the ground and smash them all? Yeah, totally.
The Jedi fell a long time ago.
Perhaps it is time to begin again.
The highly anticipated Star Wars series, Ahsoka, arrives Tuesday on Disney+.
Something dark is coming.
One must destroy in order to create.
The galaxy is not safe.
Don't miss the 2-episode premiere.
We have to prepare for the worst.
Hunt them down.
Let's get going.
Ahsoka 2-episode premiere streaming Tuesday only on Disney Plus.
So Wall of Shame, John, I'll start with you on this one.
Where do I start?
Dude, you know how you had 4 pages of
right.
notes last week? You could have done 4 pages of notes on Wall of Shame this episode.
I have less than a page of notes for this game, so it's actually rather easy to talk about. You got to mention Barkley and the 4 turnovers, and like none of it looked good. Like there wasn't one that was like, oh, the receiver should have caught. No, they were all really bad, and the offensive line we already talked about. But like, what gets me is the penalties. Like last week we were talking about Wall of Shame penalties. 8 penalties for 59 yards. And this week, it was even worse. They had 13 in the first 31, 32 minutes of the game. Like, it was really bad. They were sleepwalking through the first half. I don't know if they weren't prepared. I don't know if it's the coaches. I don't know what's going on, but the penalties, that's got to stop.
Yeah, that was cringe-worthy to see that many penalties, especially like you said. I mean, Sean McDermott came out last press conference. He's like, those penalties against the Colts in the first week of the preseason weren't good. I'm not happy with that. And then this week, he has more penalties in the first half than he did in the entire game last week. And you got to think like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what is going on here? Like, this isn't your first season with the Bills. Like, if this was your first season with the Bills, I can understand the penalties, right? Like, they happen. But the penalties mean one of two things. Your team isn't disciplined enough, or they're not good enough to play against the players that they're playing with, so they have to hold. Like, Spencer Brown has to hold in order to protect Josh Allen. Like, on that play, specifically, where we mentioned it was a Gabriel Davis catch that I mentioned earlier, Spencer Brown got caught holding, and I've seen it in replay a couple of times. Deion Dawkins was holding just as much. Like, he was getting beat by his guy. Spencer Brown is 6'8", 312 pounds. He got pushed back like crazy by a guy that's over 50 pounds lighter than him and like 6 inches shorter. The guy just pushed him, and he's just like, he's on his back foot as soon as the ball was snapped. It was crazy. Dude, speaking of that, I'm going to give Barkley definitely deserves it. But he's just I kind of hoped he would win the job just because, you love the story. He's a very likable guy, but it's clear he's not. I mean, the Bills just might not have a good backup situation this season going into it, but I'm going to give it to Spencer Brown. I mean, you have to like Spencer Brown as a person, and like the way he seems to be off the field, on the field. Like when Tommy Doyle hurt his knee, which is crazy. By the way, can we just say like how sad it was to see Tommy Doyle like tear his other ACL when he literally came back from a right knee ACL at the beginning of last season? He comes back, he hurts his knee last game, but it doesn't end up being serious, luckily. And then sure enough, on some freak play, he tears his left knee's ACL. And you're just like, man, this guy cannot catch a break. So Spencer Brown, say what you will about his play, but Spencer Brown and Mitch Morse both ran into the locker room as he went off in the cart. Like, not all players do that. Like, that was a cool showing by those guys. Spencer Brown is not that good right now, and we have no proof besides hope and the fact that he has really good athleticism that he's going to actually be a decent starting right tackle. So he's on my wall of shame for that, and it's not necessarily his fault. Again, Bean and McDermott did not address tackle at any point in the offseason in a reasonable way of draft capital or free agent money. I mean, they just kind of signed Brandon Shell a couple of weeks after the draft or whatever it was, or a month or two after the draft, but he was never supposed to start. He was just supposed to be decent depth, and now he's retired. So the Bills' offensive tackle situation in general is my wall of shame, but specifically Spencer Brown. Deion Dawkins doesn't look great though either, so I'm not kind of worried about that. Mike, do you have a wall of shame in this one, or did we already get it?
Just based on the stat line, I'd say Barkley, but the penalties are unacceptable for sure. Everybody mentioned like Deion Dawkins, man. He seems like a good locker room guy, loves joking around, but yeah, disappointing so far.
it's great if you're joking around. Like Isaiah McKenzie was like one of those guys that's just like, yeah, but I'd rather have you be really good on the field. Yeah. like Matt Milano, right? Matt Milano is the perfect example of this. Like it seems like he gets along well with the guys in the locker room. I'm not saying that, but he will never be the guy in front of the camera cracking jokes. Like he'll never be the one like doing karaoke in the locker room. Like he just does his freaking job and he gets along with the guys. Like that's all he does. He's a quiet guy, off the field, locker room. That's what I want. I would much rather have that guy than the guy who's like, oh, everyone loves in the locker room. Like that's great. Like awesome. Like I'd rather have a guy that can play in the field. Matt Milano, the quiet guy in the locker room, but shows up.
Push back from the buffet.
Everybody's
get that step back.
Deion Dawkins needs to.
I need to see some speed.
Everybody's got.
It's just getting beat, man. Getting beat off the line.
He does. He is getting beat off the line by speed. That happened at least once or twice. I went in the rewatch. Maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he's doing the Josh Allen diet plan, where he doesn't pay attention to anything he eats in the offseason and thinks that he can, just come into training camp and then that's where he gets in shape, right?
But it's been how long has they've been starting?
But Dawkins has like 3 or 4 years on Josh Allen. Like we know you can't do that forever. Mike, there would be days like in high school where you and I, like in the summertime, we'd get garbage plates like twice a day.
2 days.
Like, we'd literally 2 days. We didn't have training camp. We had 2 days in other ways. We would go. We'd literally stop for lunch, hang out, do whatever, and then for dinner that night, we'd stop at the same place, have garbage plates. So for people that aren't from the area, garbage plates like a hot dog or hamburger, like 2 of them, right? There's not just one. It's like 2 hot dogs, 2 hamburgers. We would get them like drenched in meat sauce, which is just like a salad. Like Coney Island, like those Coney's. Yeah,
sounds amazing.
John knows. He loves a good plate. And then you'd have like mac salad or French fries or home fries, like 2 out of those 3, and they would just. And then we, of course, drench it with ketchup too, because it's just.
Can't do it
I don't
dry.
know. We just had to add more calories. Can't do it. You need to lube your mouth up a little bit.
I preferred mustard, but
we got mustard on it too. It's good for the mustard. We got mustard also. We got the hot mustard, and then we drench. Except you didn't do the ketchup, but I was just covering that thing, right? And it was never enough. But anyway,
that's what finally started. That summer, you started like onions because they screwed up your orders so much.
That was. They always kept giving me onions. Like, well, I'm not taking them all out because they're like diced onions. You're not getting them out. I guess I'm just gonna learn to like it. Yeah, open my horizons. So, we used to do that twice a day. That was probably 5,000 calories in just those 2 meals, right? Easily. Now, when you're 17 or 18, you can do that and keep like a 27-inch waistline and not a problem. When you're 27 and trying to do the same thing, it's a little bit tougher. You better work out. You better be doing your off-season.
Is that huge metabolism change that much as you get older? Is that lifestyle? It's just, or is it just we become more sedentary?
It's definitely.
I think it's probably, but also the sedentary thing. But I think it's also metabolism.
It's more so the latter.
When you're saying the latter, isn't the latter thing I said you're just becoming sedentary and it's not your metabolism? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you'd pawn it off on genetics.
Metabolism probably has. No. Metabolism. Yeah.
I'm gonna blame my genetics.
No. Genetics could be a factor too, for sure. But I think
that's good to hear because I thought I'd rat like we always say like, your metabolism is here, and I feel like that's been debunked. A lot of it is just. It's like, you eat a lot over Christmas, that's a pound, and then you never lose it, and then, next year, extra pound, extra. And after 20 years, 20 pounds heavier.
I think muscle mass and testosterone has to do with it. Like you gain, like your metabolism is based on how much muscle you have, right? In a way. So the more muscle you have,
rich get richer,
it's
man.
tougher to. It's always the case. It's definitely more.
There's a lot of factors, but if you diet and exercise,
I agree. Yeah.
And I'm just like, when I say diet, it's not like go on a diet. It's like what your diet.
Calories in, calories out, right? If we just stopped eating, we would drop weight. That's in my mind. What I was thinking. I could fix this easily.
Mike's like, if I just stop eating, like, why don't more people just do that? Like, it's very clear. Michael, you'd be good on, like, the my 600-pound life or whatever. They'd be like, dude, stop eating. He's like, they're like, but I want a hot fudge sundae. I want 10 of them. Be like, well, just don't. Like, oh, okay.
Dude, a dude fasted for over a year and was fine. Just drank water because he was so.
Are you serious?
Because like your body, like, it's designed to get you through a period of not being able to eat, right? It's storing those calories.
He literally didn't eat for a whole year. He just lived off his fat.
He looked amazing after.
He looked amazing at the end. Did he have those skin folds and stuff that happened?
I'm not sure.
Or I feel like if you do the fasting thing, you don't get
This was going back a little before they figured how to do this.
He was always tired all the time. He had to go on disability before that, and he stayed on it until he lost all the weight, and he was fine. So, interesting. I believe there's ways to speed up your metabolism, too, if you are feeling like your metabolism is low, like intermittent fasting or whatever, or like doing muscular exercises because your muscles use up more. Like, there's ways to counteract. If you think there is a reason why you're gaining weight as you get older, like, there are ways to fix it. If you're eating. Stop eating. Stop eating is a good one.
Undefeated.
Yeah. So, yeah, but still, like, he can't get away with things that maybe he could. So, Mike, you're saying if you eat 2 garbage plates right now, it's the same as when you did it when you were like 16 or 17? Like, you're like,
yeah.
If I'm just as active as I was, okay, that's awesome.
No, I'm not saying.
I eat 1 garbage plate. I feel like I want to sleep
I'm
for
just
the entire
saying,
day.
if we did the same thing, for sure.
So, Deion Dawkins is on your wall of shame. Penalties.
Self-control.
Self-control.
Yeah, you guys were talking about, like, personalities. I don't think that really matters. Like, I don't think that variety of combinations of how good your personality is in the locker room versus how good you are on the field.
You don't think they take that into account, do you? Because I feel like they kept Isaiah McKenzie around so much longer than they would have if he wasn't like a good locker room guy. You know what I mean? Like, if everyone didn't love him. And I'm just like, what is he proving? Like, this has been 6 seasons already. I don't know.
I hope not. Like, I think I could see it for, like, certain veterans, like from a mentorship perspective. But I don't think, like, in McKenzie's case, that was, like, I think it was just happened to be, you know.
Maybe Josh liked him too. Maybe Josh
everything.
had a part in that, in him coming back too. You never know.
Or they just didn't have anybody better, right?
I mean, people went so far as to say, like, Josh Allen is not going to want to stick around, you know, if the, like, I think Josh is going to stick around. I would like to see it happen a little bit better. Like, and I didn't even not like their draft picks or whatever, where they, that's so funny, because, like, I think they made a concerted effort to protect Josh and give him weapons this offseason. It's just, it's panned out. Maybe this defense that we're hoping is going to get better under Sean McDermott, maybe it'll get better. So, I guess we'll see. So, Wall of Shame. I'm going to give an honorable mention to the Wall of Shame for Elam and Benford, the backup cornerbacks. They let Trubisky throw all over them. Like, they're basically behind Dane Jackson at this point, like the starting cornerback position. So they're CB3, CB4, and they don't look great. Like, you would think that those guys against 2s of the other team would be shutting them down when given the opportunity. But not only were they not shutting them down, they were letting them score touchdowns, letting them get first downs, big gains. Not big gains, not huge gains, but like they're getting first downs and, you know, more. And Elam and Benford were getting penalties against them. So what I thought was an embarrassment of riches at cornerback, like, they may all be okay. Not great yet, but so that was disappointing to see. We'll see when the season comes around. Again, trying not to get too far ahead of myself. So I wrote on Twitter, what was your biggest takeaway of the Bills Steelers preseason game? And there were a lot of answers. I thought maybe I'd get like 10 or 12. Like, I got like 80 answers. So I'm going to read some of these right now because they're really good insight. Ambar Bagarva says, once again, the O-line and defensive line are subpar. Yeah, that was one of my biggest takeaways from that too. Richard W. Griswold, Spencer Brown, and Khair Elam are busts. Kincaid is a gem. I don't know if they're busts. Spencer Brown doesn't look great. I'm not ready to call it in like Kyrie Irving. If you were expecting him to be a first-year starter opposite Tre'Davious White, then you're going to say he was a bust. But he could still turn into something, I think. He's not Cody Ford. Like, Cody Ford was a bust through and through. He never proved anything in any capacity. Kyer Elam has at least looked good in certain areas. I've started. But I wouldn't... maybe Spencer Brown in that issue too still. Just not what you want. Greg says... This team is not as good as we've convinced ourselves. With a much tougher schedule and better in-division competition from the Jets, Miami, and New England, we will most likely see a decrease in wins and potentially surrendering the AFC East crown. So that was good take by Greg. I have to take all those things into account. So he was more like on my side, where I was like, I'm kind of worried about this season. He's on my side. Stu McAllister writes, man, I'm watching it now. Nothing looked good. Barkley came back to earth. The O-line was poor. Defense couldn't tackle. Penalties everywhere. Yikes. Only preseason I tell myself. Stefan Cross writes, problems at right tackle and linebacker worse than feared. Pass rush not as good as hoped. And why on earth did Bean draft Elam? G-Man Bills from ST writes, his biggest takeaway is that it's preseason. Yeah, a lot of people like that. It's preseason. He lose. It's preseason. Lamont Cranston writes, how do you pass on DeJuan Jones in round 3? Because the Bills didn't think that they needed a tackle. That's why. The Bills thought that they were good at that position. I don't know if you guys, we did mock drafts together for several weeks before the draft. I did them on like a couple of episodes. I did one with Dan Mitchell from his YouTube site, which is really fun. And I took a right tackle in the first round based on how the board fell to me. I was like, right tackle, really? I was just like, yeah. I was like, the Bills could upgrade there. And I think protecting Josh Allen is the most important thing. So, and at the time, he wasn't bragging on it. He was just surprised because how many people were calling him. I'm just like, I can see it as a position of need. And guess what? It is still a position of need. And the draft is coming down and free agency is coming down. I think one of the downfalls of this regime is sometimes they hang on to their draft picks a little bit longer than they should, or think that because they got rid of Wyatt Teller so quickly and he ended up being an all-pro, that they're just like, man, we really can't do this anymore. So then they got gun-shy, and now they're keeping guys way longer, figuring they're going to start to be good someday, then maybe they really should be.
It's kind of like what you and I do at the podcast.
Yeah, well, someday maybe he'll figure it out, so... Shaggy Dog says not making the playoffs. They're not that good. The O-line won't hold up for Josh, and teams can run on our defense. 8-8 if lucky. Well, it's definitely not going to be 8-8.
Not making the playoffs? That's absurd.
You think they make the playoffs, John?
Oh, you were asleep, John.
Yeah, pretty sure.
John's like, I won't say anything about them criticizing me as a co-host on this podcast, but that Bill's not making the playoffs, I'm gonna. I'll be damned if I'm not gonna say something when that happens. Gibby back on vacation writes that everyone overreacted should calm down. Relax. It's like a somebody hacked my balloon, said, in order for us to be successful, we need to get the ball out ASAP. Josh scrambling and going for deep shots needs to be option number 2. Can't be something we rely on, but a nice threat to keep defenses honest. Our chances decrease significantly when the ball isn't out in less than 3 seconds. Wow. Dude, candor. That's a good take right there. Quick throws. I agree. Blondie writes, our coaching staff can't seem to motivate this team. They are playing checkers when 31 other coaches are playing chess. We're in trouble this season. I wouldn't say all 31 other coaches are playing chess. Some of them are still playing checkers. Good points taken. Donnie Dees writes, Dion is very mediocre, and penalties have consistently been an issue with the offense. Thomas R. Hanna writes, try telling myself how Marv went 0-4 in preseason one year and had the team ready week 1. Not sure this coaching team compares, but now the pikes are bigger in the pond. Are they the muskie? Good call week 1. 1, 2, 3 muskie. Thomas, you are more of a fisherman than I am. I don't recognize any of those references. I know what a pike is, but Are they the muskie? What is a muskie bigger than a pike, or is a pike? It sounds like it's bigger than a pike based on his reference. Mike, John, fisherman, do you know any more about that?
I've heard of pike.
Let's see. Muskie. What is the difference between a pike and a muskie? Tail fork. Perhaps the easiest way to distinguish a muskie from a pike is to identify the tail. Both species have forked tail. However, a muskie's tail has a predominantly pointed. Muskies are more rare than pike are. So I think what he's trying to say is that you need to be the one that stands out. At least that's why I get. Thomas, write us back. Let me know if I got that one right. By the way, our buddy Justin over at the Wandering Buffalo was like, you know how last week we were talking about there's got to be better updates to like killing two birds with one stone, like all these like animal abuse like things that have been going on for centuries, like so many ways, different ways to skin a cat, and like you don't have a dog in the fight, like all that stuff. Like he's just like, oh, you know, it's like, what did he say? Saving two puppies with one basket.
That's good. That's better.
Idiom. He said idiom update of the week should be a whole segment, like saving two puppies with one basket. And you're just like, that's a good thing. And you're like, oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Are the puppies like
Mandy,
falling?
right? No, they're like in a. I pictured them being like in a river or something. I don't know why I pictured a river, and they just got into a basket, and you just save them. Like you pluck them out of the river. They're just floating
And you
by.
have the basket and you reach down?
Yeah, you reach down and you scoop them up.
No way.
Are you saying I can't scoop up two puppies with a basket?
I'm like, would the water be passing through like it's a wicker basket? Then I could do it. But if you put the basket in, it would instantly fill with water. You're not going to do anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. Then it'd be too heavy. If it was a big basket, you wouldn't be able to just pull it.
I came to UB and took that fluid class, dude.
That was probably that my wife's third or fourth cousin.
He was an asshole.
Yeah. That was it. But yeah, you're right. I think wicker basket. It's got to be water could flow through it adequately, so you can, it's like a net almost, right? It's like that's what we should say. Like saving two puppies with a fishing net
that are floating down the river.
That are flowing down a river at a decent pace. Yeah. Not all rivers flow that fast, you know. Like why could it be a slow? So, yeah, maybe there's a more like
dramatic. It could be more dramatic.
More dramatic.
Like bursting into the kill shelter right before the puppies are euthanized and adopting them both.
Oh, that's a good one. Adopting two puppies at the kill shelter. That's nice. I like that. Nice. I was going to, so that makes mine sound a lot worse. I was going to say, I was going to do, saving two dogs from a kangaroo. You know how like they show them in those videos, like they attack dogs and like the owner has to come and either like punch them in the face or like get kicked by them instead. Like that's what I was thinking, like saving two dogs from a kangaroo. But I like yours better, saving two puppies from a kill shelter. That's nice. See, like you get this, you get that. It's like saving two puppies at a kill shelter, right?
It could be better. We'll think about it.
Adopting two puppies from the local ASPCA. Too many. That's the one good thing about those terrible animal abusive sayings. They're succinct. They're so succinct. 10 different ways to skin a cat. 10 different ways to change a cat's kitty litter. Like it just doesn't flow off your tongue. Mandy writes, O-line needs some work. Matt Barkley isn't super consistent or had a bad day. He's not. Yeah, both. Elam needs to work on not getting pass interference penalties. Yeah, and covering his guy too. Didn't see a whole lot of pass breakups. Ricky McGuire said Matt Milano and Jack Campbell would have been unbelievable. Yeah, true. But that's the thing. Like even if you got Jack Campbell, then that means first of all they would have had to trade up to get Jack Campbell because he went way before the Bills drafted. But then you wouldn't have Dalton Kincaid. So I don't know if I would have taken Jack Campbell over having Dalton Kincaid. Like I'd much rather have what we have right now in Dalton Kincaid as a great weapon on offense than having like a stud middle linebacker at this point, even if that's what Jack Campbell doesn't end up being.
I agree. Give Josh more weapons. Medium writes,
Bills fans are not ready for the season. I don't know about the team, but the fans are real out of practice. Hey, I take offense to that. Medium. Jersey T74 writes, people are taking this a little too hard. You're taking it a little too hard. Football is life, right? So we were very unprepared mentally for a real game. Yeah. No, I was prepared for it. I just wasn't prepared for them sucking with the first. Like, this is the only time with only 3 preseason games. Like, before, it used to be when there were 4 preseason games, it'd be very similar. The starters didn't see any action in the first game. They saw like a couple of drives in the second game. And in the third game, they would get usually a full quarter, right? Sometimes even a full half. And then the fourth game, they wouldn't see the field at all. Now the way that it goes is the first preseason game, they see nothing again. The second preseason game is they see a couple of drives again. And then the third preseason game, they see nothing. So, like, we missed that whole game where, like, the starters used to get a full half almost.
I wouldn't play Josh Allen in any preseason game.
I agree.
Yeah, what benefits you get?
I wouldn't play Stephon Diggs in any.
I wouldn't play anybody.
Good point. They just start taking like fans out of the stands, give them jerseys.
Yeah, and like Poyer, why does he have to play? Milano? No, I wouldn't play those guys.
Especially guys that have been. I guess the only thing I would make an exception for is like guys that have only been in the league for a year or two that need the practice, like Benford and Elam. But like, what does Matt Milano have to prove? Like, he's ready for it. Like, he would be ready. Yeah.
Yeah. What if he got hurt? What if he got hurt?
Yeah. Well, I'd be pretty sad.
Yeah. Or like Poyer has an injury history, so like,
yeah.
Why are
Micah Hyde has an injury? He lost most of last season to an injury.
Why are we playing Micah? Why are we playing Micah Hyde?
If one of those guys got injured, it would not be.
Did Trey White
yes,
play?
He played.
I didn't notice.
He played.
I didn't.
You didn't notice he played because he did a good job defending his.
I know, right?
His wide receivers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Offensive line, I agree with. You play the whole offensive line because they need the.
Chemistry.
The only thing I can see is like they want like chemistry with guys who like with Kincaid who are playing or like Hardy or Sherfield, these newer guys. But man, I wouldn't want to risk Allen getting hurt.
No, it was disappointing because the defense is so good. Like, I mean, they have so many all-stars on that defensive side of the ball. The offense, I could kind of understand. Like, their offensive line still isn't great; it's slightly upgraded, but like the defense, I mean, you have Matt Milano, we mentioned Travis White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Greg Rousseau is supposed to take a big step this season. Ed Oliver, and they didn't look good at all. I mean,
well, that's the other thing too, right? The starting defense didn't look good anyway, so it's like, well,
yeah. Thank God we got those reps in of sucking before we started the season. Like, would you be surprised if Sean McDermott makes them play a little bit more just to get that out of their system? Because he's not happy with how that game ended. It's possible that he just
nothing's
yeah.
I think at a minimum he's going to want to see the penalties cleaned up, and a large portion of the penalties was from the starters.
Yeah.
And, near starters.
So we'll end it on that note. As far as all the tweets, thank you guys so much for writing in, being a part of the show, for sure, as always. Want to leave this episode on a high note, I guess, I'm trying to think of, one of the things that I liked about, I'm trying to think of a positive thing, right? I know the Bills Mafia's training camp preseason darling is Andy Isabella, which I do like. I don't think he makes a roster necessarily, but I think he looks pretty good in the preseason. I like Jordan Mims a lot, the running back, the undrafted running back. I feel like the Bills fans always kind of go after like the low end wide receiver, low end running back. I'm just going after Jordan Mims. He looks good with the ball in his hands. And I'm not saying that he brings anything that, it's better than Latavius Murray or Damian Harris. Definitely not more than James Cook, but I think he looks good. I think he's worth keeping on the practice squad potentially. I haven't seen him really return any punts or kicks, so I don't know how useful he'll be on special teams, but I like what I've seen from him so far. So I'm going to keep that on a positive note.
Yeah, I'm within Isabella. He's fast for sure, but they got a lot of depth at receiver now, and in the return game, I don't know if he's done enough. I'd like to see some of the other guys get some chances there to see what they can do, to be honest. I don't know if I have like a darling guy. Like it, usually you think of like a younger guy or undrafted guy, but I mean, for me, like Latavius Murray, for a 33-year-old dude, he looks pretty good.
He had a couple of really good runs, didn't he? Right up the gut.
Yeah, and last week, and like he's had a good camp, and Harris has been hurt. Like, does he, begin as the second guy because of all that. So I could see that happening.
Yeah, I think next week what we're going to focus on, obviously the preseason game, but we're going to talk about, what players we can see making the 53-man roster, right? And I think we're kind of come up with who gets cut, who stays, and who the practice squad, who the priority practice squad players will be if they make it through waivers. So that'll be a fun discussion after that. Maybe we'll make it a separate episode or something, because this one, our game recaps usually end up being an hour or so anyway. So this will be a good chance to give another one. But anything else before we end this one, Mike, John? Once again, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago. If you're in the Western New York or Central New York area, or if you're on your way to a family reunion, check out the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago at the Del Lago Resort and Casino, where every moment is a winning moment. It's a fun place. It's a fun place to be. Wish I was there. Wish I was there for 3 hours today instead of. No, just kidding. Just kidding. If my wife ever listens to this, just kidding. I had a great time. It was awesome. There's nothing like being surrounded by strangers that I'll probably never see until the next family reunion
or funeral.
It's so funny. Or funeral. And I won't even remember any of their names. I went through like 15 people whose names were like, oh, hi. I looked directly in their eyes and I'm like, oh, hi. I even repeat people's names as a way of trying to remembering their name. Shit, I don't remember their names. You'd be like, I'm Dalton Kincaid. Hi, Dalton Kincaid. Nice to meet you. I'm Nate. And then my wife would be like, wait, who is that? And I'm like, I don't remember. I looked right at him, repeated their name back to him, forgot it.
Should have name tags.
They should. I'm a better reader than remembering of Audible. You guys remember things you read better. You guys are
point
visual,
is like
right?
you wouldn't have to remember because you just look.
Oh, that too. Or they'll tell me it and I just still won't remember. Yeah, and I'll just be like, oh yeah, it's Dalton over there. That's my old professor. They hated me. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah, that ever happened to you guys at work where it's like I know that guy's name, but I can't remember it, and you're like trying to look at his badge, but it's like turned around or it's flipped or like something weird. It's like,
oh yeah, and you can't be too obvious looking at his badge.
Right.
Be like, I'm up here, John. It's just like, yeah, you like try to catch him over, like, oh hey, look over there, Jeff. Look over at that machine over there, Jeff. Yeah. And then like once you figure out what you're saying, like have you ever like not remembered somebody's name and you felt bad about it and it was kind of obvious, like when you should have addressed them by their name but you didn't, and then you find it out like later in that day or maybe in the week or another get together, and then you like go over the top by mentioning their name back to them like so many times because you want to make up for the fact that you didn't know their name the first time. Hey Nate, it was good to see you again. Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, it was. We'll see you again soon. And then the next time they're like, oh, hey, Nate, how's it going? Jeff, great to see you, Jeff. Oh, my God. Jeff, it's been so long. I'm so glad that you came, because I was just like, man, I hope Jeff shows up at this party, because it would be a shame if Jeff didn't make it. The overcompensation. Yeah.
Yep. And then he's like, oh, my name's Dan.
Good one, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah, no. So cool. Thank you guys all for listening. Signing off for this episode, Mike.
Go Bills. Preseason means nothing.
And for John.
Go Bills. Looking forward to the Bills cleaning up things next week in Chicago.
And for me, Nate, go Bills. The Bills better clean up a few things if they want that number to stay above 53% of not worrying about the season. Go Bills, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.
Find the sound in the parking lot. We got the tailgate down.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.